There exists an intriguing quality among exceptionally perceptive individuals that leaves many puzzled. They appear withdrawn, almost elusive during certain moments, not indifferent, but deliberately choosy in their interactions. Not withdrawn from society, but thoughtfully independent. What observers encounter isn't conceit or feelings of superiority. It represents something much deeper and psychologically complex. Carl Jung comprehended this dynamic more thoroughly than most. He identified that intelligence, especially emotional and psychological acuity, naturally draws one toward deliberate separation. Not separation rooted in anxiety or past wounds, but separation as an intentional decision, a safeguarding strategy that maintains the purity of an acute intellect. Perceptive individuals maintain a unique bond with aloneness compared to others. What many interpret as isolation, they perceive as mental transparency. What others dread as rejection, they discover as liberation. This occurs not because they lack emotional capacity. It happens because they've grasped something most will never comprehend, their most profound revelations, their deepest development, and their most genuine essence surfaces not amid the turmoil of perpetual interaction, but within the intentional sanctuary of chosen isolation. But before we continue, please like this video, share it with people who might appreciate it, and write in the comments which city you're watching our YouTube channel from. Jung labeled this the process of becoming whole, the expedition toward discovering your authentic identity, independent from others' assumptions, demands, and emotional requirements. Yet here's what makes it especially significant for perceptive minds. The more sophisticated your thinking becomes, the more you recognize how much human exchange involves acting, assumption, and subconscious satisfaction rather than authentic rapport. This awareness presents a crossroads. You can either persist in engaging with social rituals that seem progressively empty, or you can retreat, disconnect, and establish the psychological room essential for genuine development. Most select the first option from apprehension. The perceptive choose the second from understanding. Intelligence, particularly the variety that includes emotional and psychological awareness, carries an unforeseen weight. You start recognizing configurations others overlook. You observe the hidden drives behind people's expressions. You identify the anxiety-driven actions that disguise themselves as affection. You grasp the psychological requirements motivating most social exchanges. Jung identified this as the emergence of what he termed psychological awareness, the capacity to examine not merely what individuals do, but their underlying motivations. This enhanced perception generates a distinctive type of separation. When you can perceive the mechanisms behind human conduct, you begin feeling like you're observing a performance while everyone else believes they're experiencing reality. This isn't pessimism. It's understanding. And understanding, though freeing, can be deeply isolating. Perceptive people frequently discover themselves in discussions where they must decide between genuineness and approval. They can either participate at the superficial degree others find comfortable or express their deeper insights and observe others retreat in unease. Most select the surface, but it carries a price. The continuous translation of sophisticated concepts into manageable portions becomes draining. The ongoing simplification of understanding to preserve social balance creates an inner division. You start feeling like you're maintaining a divided existence, your genuine self and your socially appropriate self. This recognition leads to a vital understanding. Much of what we term connection actually involves assumption. People aren't genuinely perceiving you. They're perceiving what they require you to represent. They're not caring for your authentic identity. They're caring for their concept of you. Once you grasp this, the urge to sustain these surface connections starts diminishing. Jung understood that perceptive minds naturally move toward fewer profound connections rather than numerous shallow ones. Substance over volume becomes not merely a preference but a psychological requirement. The intelligent person's withdrawal often functions as protection against the energy depletion of sustaining relationships that lack authentic comprehension or mutual exchange. There exists a specific exhaustion that accompanies being perceptive in a society that frequently rewards compliance over independent thought. You observe people making choices based on feelings rather than reasoning, pursuing fashions rather than values, and seeking approval rather than reality. The mental contradiction becomes unbearable. Jung discussed extensively the shared unconscious, the common psychological frameworks that shape human conduct, but he also acknowledged that certain individuals develop sufficient awareness to transcend these collective frameworks. This generates what researchers call cognitive separation, the experience of reasoning differently from most people surrounding you. Perceptive individuals often find themselves mentally interpreting social circumstances, political conversations, and even informal discussions through various analytical perspectives. They perceive the psychological forces, the reasoning errors, the historical cycles, and the unconscious prejudices all at once. This complex awareness makes it challenging to participate at the simple, direct level that most social interaction demands. The outcome is a type of internal displacement. You're physically there but psychologically removed. You take part but don't completely involve yourself. You hear but often discover yourself examining rather than simply absorbing. This isn't a decision. It's the inevitable result of a mind that cannot disable its analytical capabilities. This generates a distinctive type of isolation. Not the isolation of being physically solitary, but the isolation of being mentally solitary among others. It's the separation that emerges from perceiving relationships and configurations that others miss, from grasping consequences that others disregard, from acknowledging the intricacy in circumstances others consider straightforward. The perceptive person's withdrawal frequently functions as defense against this mental contradiction. By establishing distance, they maintain their intellectual transparency and prevent the continuous friction of attempting to function at different mental wavelengths than those surrounding them. Intelligence creates a sharp understanding of emotional investment. The recognition that your emotional vitality is limited and must be allocated carefully. Unlike those who distribute their emotional focus across multiple surface relationships, perceptive people become tactical about where they channel their psychological resources. Jung realized that awareness demands energy. The more conscious you become, the more energy maintaining that consciousness requires. This establishes a natural choosiness in how and where you participate. Every emotional investment must undergo a type of value assessment. Will this relationship promote my development or exhaust my resources? Will this interaction add to my understanding or merely repeat known patterns? This isn't indifference. It's emotional intelligence applied to relationship organization. Perceptive people acknowledge that their ability for deep, significant connection is constrained not by insufficient caring, but by the strength with which they experience and analyze emotional information. They prefer one meaningful connection over 10 shallow ones. This choosy approach to relationships often seems like withdrawal to others. People anticipate consistent emotional availability, regular social involvement, and predictable reactions to social signals. When perceptive individuals don't fulfill these expectations, not from incapacity, but from deliberate choice, they're often characterized as distant, proud, or antisocial. The reality is more complex. Perceptive people have mastered distinguishing between emotional reactions and emotional responses. They've cultivated the ability to observe their emotions without being dominated by them, to participate when it serves a function, and to retreat when it doesn't. This emotional independence appears as withdrawal, but actually represents a type of psychological expertise. The withdrawal serves various purposes. It conserves energy for activities that matter. It sustains mental clarity essential for profound thinking, and it shields against the emotional chaos that results from being too invested in other psychological conflicts. Perhaps the most misinterpreted element of intelligent withdrawal is the relationship with solitude. While most people fear being alone and use continuous social activity to avoid confronting themselves, perceptive individuals have uncovered what Jung called the treasure in the depths, the abundance that surfaces in authentic solitude. Solitude for the perceptive mind isn't an emptiness, but a fullness. It's not about being alone, but about being with yourself in a manner that's impossible when continuously managing social interactions. In solitude, the mind can function at its natural pace without needing to adjust, interpret, or accommodate others' mental approaches. This is where the most important insights surface, where innovative solutions form, where philosophical comprehension grows. The perceptive person's withdrawal establishes room for what Jung called active imagination, the mind's capacity to engage with concepts, possibilities, and insights that only surface in the quiet between social interactions. The contradiction is striking. By withdrawing from others, perceptive people often become more connected to themselves, to their authentic thoughts and emotions, to their genuine aspirations and principles. This internal connection then becomes the basis for any external relationships they choose to sustain. Most people create relationships to escape themselves. Perceptive people often retreat from relationships to discover themselves. This fundamental difference in approach creates natural obstacles to understanding between the perceptive and the typical. What seems like rejection or distance is often simply a different method of human connection, one that emphasizes depth over scope, substance over volume, genuineness over accommodation. The solitude benefit explains why many highly perceptive individuals are comfortable with extended periods alone, why they can spend days or weeks without social interaction without feeling deprived, and why they often surface from these periods with enhanced clarity, creativity, and psychological unity. Jung acknowledged this pattern in his own existence and research. His most significant insights emerged not from social interaction but from sustained periods of reflection, examination, and what he called engagement with the unconscious. The withdrawal necessary for this level of self-discovery isn't a retreat from existence. It's a deeper involvement with it. The withdrawal of perceptive people isn't a defect to be fixed or a barrier to be dismantled. It's a natural adaptation to the unique difficulties of living with enhanced awareness in a society that often functions at more basic psychological levels. Comprehending this pattern, whether in yourself or others, creates opportunities for more authentic and fulfilling human connections. For those who embody this pattern, the challenge isn't learning to be more social. It's learning to respect your natural patterns while remaining receptive to connections that genuinely enrich rather than drain your psychological resources. For those attempting to understand someone who displays this pattern, the key is acknowledging that their withdrawal isn't personal, it's psychological structure necessary for their mental wellness. Jung's insight remains significant. Becoming whole, the journey toward psychological completeness, often demands periods of separation from collective patterns and expectations. For the perceptive mind, withdrawal isn't isolation, it's integration. It's the space required to become fully yourself before attempting to genuinely connect with others.